All right, I'll go first. G'day, Ian Elliott from News Talk ZB.
Hey, Elliot.
Have you had a chance to review the tape yet, and what are your thoughts the day after?
Oh, look, we're working through that at the moment. Clearly, it hasn't cheered us up, and we're disappointed with that. It's we're a proud team that's hurting a lot at the moment. We didn't give the response that we wanted to after the Brisbane game, and that's really, really frustrating. So, already there's been a whole lot of soul searching going on, and we're trying to look at how we can actually sharpen up and respond the way that we know that the All Black jersey demands. So that's kind of the space we're in.
In terms of the desire and everything like that, I know Sam Kane mentioned in his post-match interview that the opposition wanted it more. It's not often you hear something like that said from an All Blacks captain. Do you think that was the case?
Oh, look, I think we played with... I certainly don't question the attitude and the commitment that we played with, but clearly they looked a very, very fresh team, and I think everyone was writing them off to say that they hadn't had much rugby, but the reality is they turned that into an advantage of fresh, and they played with a lot of energy. And to be honest, we kind of looked like a team that just played 5 tests in 6 weeks, and so and that's disappointing because we actually went about the week trying to energise this group. We know it's been a funny old year, and we've had a lot going on the last month or so, but like I said, we're a proud unit, and we just didn't get the response we wanted. So, we've got a week without a game at the end of it, so we've got a chance to really recap and spend a lot of time digging into what we are doing, and we will do that. And like I said, I've got a lot of faith in the people that we're working with, that we'll come up with a response that we need to.
You're mentioning a lot, fatigue. Is fatigue a real factor at the moment, given the length of the year, everything that has gone on? Do you think it was a factor last night? Well,
I'm just saying, it just looked to me like there was, we felt good going into the game, and we've always felt that we can only control what we can, and we felt we had a good preparation going into that game. But when you watched it, you could see one team that looked extremely fresh on the front of their feet, and another team that probably wasn't quite as energetic. So again, we've got to look at that, and it's a funny old year for everyone, but that doesn't change the fact that we didn't front with the game that we wanted.
Last one from me. I know you mentioned on Thursday the possibility of maybe sending some players home. Does the defeat now change that plan as far as you're concerned?
No, not at all. We're just working through that at the moment, and we'll let you know once we sort through that.
Thanks, Ian.
Hey, Fozzie, Ollie Ritchie here. Just again, I wonder if you could comment on the discipline last night. It's a couple of weeks in a row now. It seems that discipline's been a bit of an issue. Is that getting quite frustrating, some of those penalties that you're giving away?
Yep. And I know it's frustrating the players and us as collectively. We composure. It's funny, you go back a fortnight, and composure was one of our strengths, and now we've just come down from a little bit of a high from Sydney, and we don't seem to have made the adjustments in that space that we would have wanted to. So it's look, I don't think there's anything new to what's happening on the park. Test match rugby's always been played on the edge, and what we saw yesterday was the same as what we've seen from years and years from Argentina. So look, there's no excuse for us not being disciplined at key things, and suddenly in the last few weeks we've gone from being a team that's been immensely disciplined, for example, on the offside line, and suddenly we're giving up 2 or 3 penalties on something that we can control like that. And we've got to look at the cause of that, but they're easy fix, but it does show you that people are probably trying a little bit too hard in that space, and we just got to start trusting what we do a little bit more.
You have to have a word to a couple of those senior players. I mean, some of the examples, the Shannon Frizzell incident, the Dane Cole slap where the penalty was reversed. I mean, these are some of your senior All Blacks that are giving away these penalties. Does there need to be a word with some of these guys?
Oh, well, without doubt, there'll be a word.
Sam, just for you, what is talked about when you're out there and maybe that penalty count is starting to creep up, like Fozzie mentioned around the offside line? I just wonder what the message is between, Sam, Kane and yourself and the other senior players around trying to get on top of that.
Yeah, great question. I think the way we've always operated is the solution to it. So, as you're saying, offside, the solution is actually just taking a foot further back to make it clear and obvious that you are onside. And then obviously we want to come forward and bring line speed like every international side does. So it's just solution. We don't have time out there to break everything down. So the quick and easy solution is just take a yard.
You've played the Pumas quite a bit in your career, Sam. Did anything surprise you about the way they came out last night and the Pumas team that you faced yesterday compared to sides you've faced in the past?
Yeah, I've played against them a number of times, and they're always a very challenging side to play. They play with that, that passion and energy, and we saw that last night. As I've experienced every time I've got out there against them, and I thought I was in a pretty good spot, prepared for that. And as Fozzie said, we weren't happy with our performance, so we've got to make sure that we get an opportunity in 2 weekends time to go out there and have a go. So we've got to make sure that we're aware of that, but we can't just focus on that one thing.
Just lastly from me, Fozzie, how important is the bye week? You mentioned that fatigue, and I'm sure you probably love the chance to be able to bounce back and make up that loss straight away, but just how important is that bye week and managing the players' loads? And as you say, it's been a pretty jam-packed schedule.
Oh, look, it's going to be as good as we use it, isn't it? It's look, there's a whole lot of cards that have been dealt to all the teams and the 5 tests in 6 weeks is something that we knew. So, like I said, there's no excuse. We made changes last week and in order to deal with some of that. So, we've had our strategy and we're sticking to those, because reality is, whilst we're incredibly disappointed with the loss, we still got a job to do, and we've got a chance to, whilst there's a, I didn't really use the word buy so much. It was more we haven't got a game at the end of the week, and we've got some work to do. And so how we switch on and switch off at this time, I know we've got a lot of, players have been away. They're not used to their normal support base around them in terms of families and all that sort of stuff. But we've got to make sure that this group works hard in the next week, so that when we actually start our prep for RG for that last week, is that we're ready to go and excited. And so there'll be a lot of training going, a few meetings, but also some time for them to switch off.
And invariably over the years, we've seen the All Blacks respond from defeats, with a real fury the following week. Can you sort of put your finger on why that wasn't evident to the same degree? If you look back to Eden Park following the draw and various other examples over the year, you maybe didn't get to that same level?
Yeah, look, I think, Liam, we're going to obviously work through that and puzzle over that a little bit ourselves. It's interesting that when you look at a game of rugby, it's easy to respond physically, and you actually want something more. And like I said, this is a proud group that was pretty determined to respond. And I thought physically early that we actually did some good stuff. But I think that when you don't take and don't see some opportunities that are given against a good team and you don't take them, and then sometimes it can narrow your game down. And I just feel at the moment that we've got to get a lot more clinical in taking the opportunities, and that forces the defence to then change and adapt. And at the moment we allowed Argentina to do what they do well, which is to come forward and target a key ball carrier, and we didn't change that point of contact enough. So, that part of that's a bit of a growth for this team and it's something that we're learning about, where we would have liked to have improved a little bit quicker, and we haven't. But we've got 12 days or whatever it is to next Saturday, and we've got to use that time smartly, and we've got to make sure that we go and respond to an Argentinian performance with a performance that we are proud of.
And just expanding on that a little bit, obviously it was a great defensive performance from Argentina, but the frustration, I guess, seemed to creep into the attack when he couldn't break them down. Does there need to be a bit more variety, or how do you go about dealing with that when you are confronted with such a resolute defensive team?
Yeah, look, there's no doubt about that. We do need a bit more variety in it, and I think again, if you go to Eden Park, Sydney, it was the changes in the pitches that we saw and the variety that we were willing to use that actually created the opportunity, and that's again Test match rugby. You look at one of the South African tries with a little dink over the top and a couple of knees hitting the ball, but it's that sort of changing pitches that's key. And I think we're getting used to a few new systems, and there is a feel that we're just getting a little bit too programmed in some aspects, and we need to tweak that. There's no doubt about that. But that's high up on the agenda, and again, we are working in that space, but we've got to get there a bit quicker.
Just two quick things from me, Sam. Just from a leadership player's perspective, it's been 9 years since this team suffered back-to-back defeats. How do you sort of get over that and progress? I guess it's hasn't happened for such a long time.
Yeah, the last time we had back-to-back defeats, I think we played South Africa and Port Elizabeth, then travelled to Brisbane and lost to Aussie, and then before the World Cup. So I think the biggest thing for us is actually going back and have a good look at the game and going back to how we approach the week. As Fozzie said, we've got, I think it's 12 days, so how we actually structure that's going to be critical, and we've started that planning process because we don't want to play theoretically the game before we get out there this last one. So it's just going to be a little bit different this week, but we've got to take the learnings and we've got to learn quicker while we're out there, but also throughout the week too.
And sorry, just lastly, any injury concerns, Ian? How's this squad generally?
Nah, we've actually come through it reasonably well.
Thank you.
Buongiorno Ian, it's Melita.
Buongiorno Melita.
A couple of questions, one following both from Liam. From a tactical point of view, why this All Blacks squads in the last few years has been not
It's time for you, Joe.
Melita?
Well, with the rush defence. So what is the actual... Hello?
Yeah, sorry, we lost you very briefly there. So could you just get your question and then we'll see how we go.
Okay, so from a tactical point of view, I would like to know why the rush defence is so hard to cope with for the All Blacks.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, well, the rush defence is hard to deal with every team, and the key is in attack is to make sure you do things that it doesn't allow them to come forward so quickly, and so with the point of contact of attack where you go is key, and the quality of your ball carrying and cleaning and the speed of your ball, because all those things negate line speed. And so what I was talking about earlier, Melita, is that when we get those things right, people don't really talk about line speed being a problem. When you don't get those things right, then line speed becomes the tough thing that you got to deal with. And really, the only way to deal with if you attack the wrong area and you don't get your carry right and the decisions around that right, then you're forced into a position of trying to play through a rush defence or to a kicking game. And so our goal is to not necessarily come up with tactics that just beat line speed, but it's actually to look at where we can attack and how well we do the contact work so that we can negate it at source. So, and what you saw last night is an Argentinian team that was strong at the tackle. They held us up a little bit and they slowed down the ball and got their line set, and it really forced us into a position that we were playing against a strong defence. And when we did resort to a shorter contestable kicking game, we actually did okay, but in the first half we kicked really poorly, and particularly from the back, we gave loose possession away when we needed to put them under pressure. So pretty frustrating, but we will, like I said, it's hurting like anything. All the squads like that, and we've got to make sure we learn very, very quickly.
You say, of course, that this is like early times for all new squads. I feel sometimes last night that the squad look like a man in deep waters that throw arms around rather than be still. And I remember how in the past some players used to say that they were searching this kind of pressure because it was the only way to really work out ways to get out. And I wonder if actually this team is some sort of a passage that this team has to go through because it's so young and they need to find themselves in such difficulties so that they can find themselves a way out later on in the pace.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt about it. You know, we'd rather not have to go through it because we don't like it. But it's when you go into a test match, it is challenging, and you know, I guess. You know, it's not like we take it for granted, but I mean, people expect us to respond all the time. But, you know, we are learning some pretty tough lessons at the moment. And I know there'll be judgment on the team and what we're doing, and we accept that because that's the environment we live in. But, you know, our job is to try to take the different pressure experiences that we're collectively feeling at the moment and saying, okay, how are we going to deal with this and how can we learn quickly? And that's all our efforts going into that space. And I know there's a whole lot of players and management that are learning very, very quickly about Test match rugby and the challenges of it.
Thank you.
Last couple of questions, everyone, and then we'll wrap up. It sounds like you, Richard.
Yeah, just a question, Ian, just earlier when you were speaking to Liam, you just spoke about the perhaps being a bit too programmed and the lack of variety in attack. Isn't that something your leadership on the team, on the ground, should take accountability for? How does that work? Can you give us an insight, please?
Well, it's all about, I don't think it's any one person, one part. It's just a part of the game, Richard, that we're really cognizant that the last 2 weeks we've looked a bit clumsy with the ball, and I think I spoke last week about not being reactive enough to situations that were in front of us rather than stuff that we'd trained. Like even last night, going through the things, you know, we created some opportunity that we just had to execute our skill and our decisions a little bit better, and then all of a sudden the game could have changed and the picture would have changed. Now, you know, I'm not making excuses for that because we weren't good enough to take them, but we need to be, and we've got to get clinical on that in those scenarios where it may be slightly off script, but if that's the picture that they're going to give us, we need to be smart enough to do that. Now, we are working in that space, and like I said, it was a space I felt we made some real progress a couple of weeks ago, but for some reason we've gone backwards in the last 2 weeks in that area of reacting to what the defence has given us, and we've got to relook at what we're doing. I still believe we're on track in that space. We've got some great people, great players who are good at doing that, and for some reason we've just got the blinkers on. We need to change it.
Just one last question from me, just around your bench. I mean, there's some good impact, but also just the errors they made in a couple of not straight in lineouts. Hoskins made a great run, and then there was that pass, and also there was that quick penalty tag about 6 minutes to go when perhaps it would be better to go for a scrum or a line out. Do you sort of expect better from your bench, or do you just think that's the way the game is going?
No, we expect a lot out of our bench, so it's a good observation. I think the quick tap, I'll excuse that because I think we're chasing 2 scores, so I can understand that, and the amount of time it was taken to set a scrum was actually becoming quite frustrating. So I can understand that decision, but our bench is there to bring impact and skill, and largely they've been doing that pretty good. We've got, again, there's a couple of guys in there that haven't had a lot of test match rugby that are coming in, and it's a high pressured environment, and Hoskins is a great example. Boy, he was good off the scrum 2 times, wasn't he? And he was good enough to create something both times really, but we weren't clinical enough to finish it off. I think the first time he ran off the scrum, we potentially could have scored on the other side of the field, but I think Reeks dropped a pass, and then the next time Hoskins went off the scrum, he went quick, and if it hit Damien, there was a try there. So, when you nail those details, we're having a different conversation, but we're not, and we've got to get better at it.
Okay, just one last one from me. It's a pretty tough initiation for your new captain, Sam Kane. Do you have to get around him as the coach, or do you just let him get through this himself? I mean, how's he chugging along after all?
Yeah, no, we're all much the same, aren't we, Sam? We're all hurting in that space, and one of the first meetings we have is with our leaders, and Sam's obviously an integral part of that, as is this fella next to me and some other people. So look, it's always been a collective effort, and the fact is that we're all very proud of this jersey that or this country that we represent, and we know that everyone will be disappointed, and we hate that. And so we're doing everything we can to fix that, but there are a lot of people that are hurt, and times like this, you get put in a position it's easy to doubt what you're doing and to start second guessing yourself. But there's, we've made some really good progress, but then we've taken 2 big steps back, and we need to fix it.
Cheers.
Sam,
Thanks, everyone.
Sorry, can I just ask a quick couple of questions?
Yeah, sorry, Paddy. We'll get a couple from you, and then we'll wrap up. Thanks, mate.
Thanks. Just Sam, just wondering about what your energy levels are like, firstly, and secondly, what you make of the efforts of the Type 5 over the last few weeks.
Yeah, myself, I feel great. Obviously, the year has been completely different, as we all know. So it's kind of been feast or famine. Obviously, Super Rugby was all go, and then kind of had a little bit of a down part with a couple of Mitre 10 games thrown in there. Talking about the Type 5, I think we're probably a little bit like the results of the last few weeks. We've had some really good performances, and then some ones that we know we can be better in. So it's taking that learning and smoothing out that curve so it's not so up and down. And it's on myself as a senior player. Obviously, Dane's another one. So we've got to drive that big time around our set piece, break down, and allow our team to play.